Imagine a surface of a billowing gas cloud. Can you picture one of those huge gas clouds that we've seen pictures of out there in the universe? Imagine the top of one of those gas clouds as a surface, and it just represents the edge of that gas and the start of something else. From out of the something else, a drop of water falls, and it's been accelerating. When it meets this boundary with the gas, it begins to decelerate because there's a pressure difference. That's what the boundary represents. The gas inside the cloud has a pressure, and the gas outside has a different pressure. And the boundary is just there at that time. So it's hit a different pressure, and it starts to slow. Its acceleration starts to slow. So it's still accelerating, but it's just the rate of acceleration is slowing. How? Because it translates to vector. So if this drop of water was spinning randomly and at some angle, when it hit the water, the surface of the gas, when the water hits the surface of the gas, it gets a trajectory. As soon as it's got a trajectory, it's got an axis. And that axis must have a point of relativity, a point of rotation around which to rotate. And it's that creation of an axis that slows the drop of water. Because inside, another axis has been created that's trying to push it in a different direction. So that sets the arena for the bubble that we're looking at, how a bearing is created. So the drop of water is now falling inside this gas, but it has a trajectory and it has motion inside it. The front edge of the drop of water has now got a direction. So the front edge of it, the point, takes all the pressure and it collapses to a hole at the center. So it folds. The drop of water, the first thing it does is forms a carbanoid, I think, shape, and that the center of it is the center of the original circle. When it gets to there, that valve opens, because you can't have pressure. At any point approaching that point is pressure. As soon as it gets there, there's no pressure, it opens. Gas gets into this chamber, which was the water. And suddenly you've got a drop of gas inside the water. So you've got competing rejections now. If you can imagine that the gas is trying to reject the drop of water in an extremely puny way, because it's got nothing apart from a billowy waftiness. But nonetheless, it doesn't like having the water inside it. It would rather reject it. Now that water has now got a piece of gas inside it. You've created two surfaces for the water. An external one and an internal one that's connected by this valve system. The shape of the sphere gets a coating, a membrane. Oil, which is the gas, becomes plastic, and it creates oil, crude oil, that coats that surface. And so at the tip, now you get oil is getting in. It's threatening to get in. And the oil, if it stays closed, if something can pinch that closed, the oil will stay as a sphere. So it will no longer leak into the chamber inside the water. It'll stay where you want it and form the front edge of the projectile. So the water will then have a nose cone made from oil, plastic modulus. So that you can tell how what's going on inside the bubble, because when it was sealed, the pressures created and that vector axis that's in there creates everything inside this chamber. It creates an atmosphere. It adjusts the gas in there, because some got in at the moment, went at the beginning before it closed. So at times, I say in the beginning, it's the beginning of cycles. What happens is that the valve is closed, the planet runs perfectly, the atmosphere sweetens beautifully, everyone's happy. As mankind decays in our behaviour as apex species, we corrupt the atmosphere, what we breathe, we're breathing out, weakening the atmosphere, and that can no longer pinch the valve closed, so it opens. So oil gets into the planet and leaks out everywhere. And so there's gas and oil in the system. The system hides that oil is this waste product that we shouldn't have. It pretends it's precious. So that's the theory of everything. Everything is created inside this projectile of force, because the bearing of the yin yang, the two-dimensional bearing, is that hole. So there's my circle, my carabinoid pointing to the center, with a hole. I look at the hole, it says yin yang. So the hole's got a valve system. Keep spinning at the right speed, the valve stays shut. As soon as it slows down, the valve opens a little bit. There's a gap, and things get in. Radioactivity, that sort of thing. So that the science of consciousness is this. Just imagine the valve is closed, and so that everything is sweet inside. The vector axis, which is now operating inside the atmosphere, creates gravity. It has centrifugal and centripetal forces acting together in a super fine balance. As long as the projectile keeps hurtling through the gas, it'll keep having this double force in motion at the yin yang. It's the balance between centrifugal and centripetal forces. Okay? So that consciousness arises from the expansion that should occur in the valve. It occurs first in consciousness, so that we have to imagine that there's just a circle with a dot point in the middle, and the dot point expands to fill the void first, and then the valve should open. If the consciousness can be powerful enough to do a one rotation I, then it can catch up with the energy, adding energy to it, and keep the valve closed. And the reward for that is a tight H, a 2 pi H, or a 2 pi real H. And the reward is excellent mental health, because you've moved through the information field. Inside the bearing, you could see, okay, that's that. But because that speed is infinite, it actually fills the universe. And so the universe is merely information. It's just full of information. And we've moved through it once in every tiny moment. That's the experience of consciousness. And we control it. How good it is, quality of it. Because that's the greatest mass moment. They keep piling up on top of each other. You find a smaller detail on top of the mass moment that you can add momentum, then you add it. Honing, perfecting. It's always excellence to be earned. Science of consciousness. Engineering. Levy. Euler. Newton. Everyone else, bin. And then we'll introduce as we want. Okay, welcome to New Earth.